Now, I kind of want to peel back the layer when you said that you came from like a rough background. Were you, by any chance, like, you had your faith in that broken home and then it helps you get out? Or did you, when you got out to build your own home, had to find faith?
Both. Okay, so I'm ethnically Armenian.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so my grandmother's Armenian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would that make you? Not a quarter.
I think a quarter. Yeah, a quarter. Yeah.
That's true. I didn't know you were Armenian.
Yeah, I always joke around. I go, I'm Assyrian, but I get my looks from Armenians.
So my father is 100% Armenian. My mother is adopted by an Armenian family, but she, I think, is like Russian or Ukrainian. That's what the 23andMe DNA test. And so we grew up in Azerbaijan, Baku, which is just north of Iran, east of Armenia. And that's a predominantly Muslim country. And it was under Soviet Union. So there's like layers to this, right? And because of the Soviet Union, we didn't grow up going to church. I didn't even know anything about faith or anything because it was like Soviet Union.
You're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Right? And so my dad, because he's Armenian, we were more fair-skinned because my mom is Russian. The pogroms of Baku broke out. This is in the late 80s. This is where the Arzis had issues with the Armenians in Baku. So my dad was going back and forth, traveling to Moscow, working, and my mom, we stayed back. And long story short, we came out as refugees because the pogroms of Baku broke out, meaning that the Arzis wanted all the Armenians out of the land. And so in 91, we applied to a bunch of different places and we came to San Diego as refugees. And then when we finally came here, then I discovered like, Armenia, oldest Christian nation, deep history. And I started going to Armenian Apostolic Church, a part of the Oriental Orthodox arm of the church. So I was like an altar boy and the whole bit, like all the way in.
How old were you?
Yeah, how old were you when you left Baku?
So 6. I was 6 when I left. And my mom and my dad, I didn't know that they were already on the rocks. Like their relationship was already heavy because my dad's working in Moscow. My mom is back in Baku. There's a lot of issues in their relationship. And what happened was I end up discovering these letters with like lipstick kissy marks, right? And I'm like, oh, this is sweet. Like my mom's like writing letters to my dad. And so I take them to my dad. Well, what I didn't know is that they were to her boyfriend back in Baku. And so that was the straw that broke the camel's back for my dad. And he ends up...
You said the last straw? What did he know she was...
Yeah, he knew...
But it was that your son brought it to you.
Yeah, he knew she had a boyfriend. He had a girlfriend in Moscow. This was their fresh start. We're coming to America, new life, fresh start. And she's still writing her boyfriend. And I suppressed all these memories as a child. I didn't know this. So she ends up being sad. He's like, I'm done, walks out, leaves, makes an effort to be in my life, but she made it difficult. She just, my mom's always had a pretty terrible taste in men besides my dad. And so she's like downward spiral of alcoholism. Her dad ended up, dying back in Baku. And my dad moves on, brings his girlfriend out, gets remarried. At the same time, I'm an altar boy, and there's these older altar boys in the church. They're like maybe 13, 14. I'm like 7-ish, 8-ish. And long story short, they ended up molesting me. These older kids end up molesting me. And it was very graphic. And I don't remember how long it lasted, but it all came out. It all culminated and all came out. And there was a misplacement of responsibility. And basically they made it seem like I was like the victim in the situation. The kid was the one that aggressively did it all. Like I was the one that initiated this stuff. And it was really dark time. So like my dad's gone. My mom's an alcoholic. I get sexually assaulted by these older teenage altar boys. And the church ends up just kind of like shrugging and not really doing anything about it. And they remarried my dad, which she was technically, I guess, according to my mom, not divorced. So all of this, by the time I'm 10, 11, I am an atheist. Like I'm like telling people I'm an atheist. God doesn't exist. And if he does, he definitely doesn't like me. I stopped going to Armenian church. I ended up getting arrested for breaking into houses at 11. I was on probation my whole 6th and 7th grade year. Gangs, drugs, smoking weed, alcohol, like you name it. I was the crazy disgruntled kid because I had a father wound. Like my dad left, and my dad wasn't there to protect me from this stuff, and the church hurt me, and it was just a mess, man. Like a mess of a childhood that thankfully God and his sovereignty and in his providence just came after me in a really kind of a miraculous way.
That is so, I mean, it's so heavy and it's so much for a child to process. And certainly if you don't have figures around you that are able to help you, you know, process it and understand it and get through it, I mean, that's just incredibly difficult. And so at the time when you're 11, 12, were you living with your mom at this time?
Yeah, living with my mom. My dad's not coming around. Every time he'd come around, there'd be a fist fight. There would be a drunk dude to greet him, and just insane stuff. My mom would jump in when my dad is trying to fight off this guy. It's like crazy stuff. So my dad is like, dude, like, because I ended up confronting him about all this stuff. Like, where were you? Like, what happened, dude? And so he's like, you don't remember this? You don't remember this? You don't remember this? And I was like, I would think you still should have been there, but okay, I get it. Like, you moved on and you tried, but it was hard. It was really hard for him. So it allowed me to humanize him. At the same time, my mom slowly turns it around. We were on welfare for 5 years, like government, cheese, like you name it. Like we had the programs, and she slowly turns it around. She got a job at a casino, and she starts kind of improving our situation little by little. And as I'm getting arrested, she sees that I'm in Normal Heights, San Diego, which I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with San Diego. San Diego was very different in the early 90s. Like, this is early, mid 90s, a very different San Diego. And so because I got arrested, I kept getting in trouble. My 7th grade year, I had like a 1.0 GPA. They almost like revoked my little probation because I didn't do the community service hours. Like, I was just a mess. And so a couple of things happened. The manager of our apartment, her name was Cherie. She's sweetheart. We're still friends to this day. She ends up getting caught for moving weight through an airplane. Like, she's moving weight for street dudes. And she was really in that world to the point where me and her son would do sleepovers. And one night we did a sleepover at my house, and like the alleyway where their house was got shot up. Like, we were all in the same apartment complex. So she ends up getting saved, like radically saved, comes out and is just sharing the gospel with everybody. And everybody is getting saved in our apartment complex. It's like maybe like one of those like 8-unit ones, except the 2 Armenian families. Like, Armenians were like, no, we're like stubborn. We're not doing it. And so she and other people around me started prophesying. You're going to do great things for the Lord someday. God's going to use you to speak to millions of people. And I'm like, there's no God. And there's a God. He doesn't like me very much. Like, stop it. And sure enough, like, God used those people to plant seeds. And the end of my 7th grade year, this kid, this Samoan kid, ends up bringing a gun to school, and he shows it to me. And then I get called into the principal's office, and there's detectives there, and they're like, hey, so-and-so said that it was your gun. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, well, we know you're on probation. We know this and this. You messed this up, blah, blah, blah. They know me. They already know my reputation. And so I'm like, no, like, this is not my gun. You guys are crazy. I've literally, it's like a movie scene. I get up and I cuss at the daggone detectives. Like, that's not my effing gun. Run the fingerprints and you'll see it's not my gun. They're like, we are going to run the fingerprints and we're going to prove your gun. You're going to go away. Like, it was like, first of all, why are you talking to a minor without legal counsel or a parent guardian? This is crazy.
They like to do that so you can confess things.
Dude, it was nuts. The same day, or the next day, I'm going home from school. This is like the last few days of my 7th grade year at Wilson Middle School. The Samoan kid is walking up the street. And I'm like, hey, man, what's up with that whole gun thing? Like, what happened? And all I see is a blade in his right hand. And I look and I see a blade in his hand. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, why did you snitch on me? And I'm like, snitch on you? And at that point, I just booked it down El Cajon Avenue as quickly as I could. Thankfully, he was a big Samoan kid, and there was no way he was going to catch me.
What was the update on that? What happened to him?
I have no idea.
You ran that fast?
I ran that fast, and we moved into Vista, California, which is where I live now. That same weekend, we moved, and I went from being a 1.0 GPA student, finished my 8th grade year with almost a 4.0, just a change of environment, different environment, basketball. My plan was, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm not smoking weed. I'm not doing anything else. At this point, I had lost my virginity. I had done everything there is to do. I'm done. This is my fresh start. And I ended up deciding, okay, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Like, that's going to be the path. And unfortunately, my mom's DNA didn't really hit me much. And my mom's boyfriend had to sit down and have a conversation with me about Armenian genetics. and explained to me that there's never been an Armenian that's made it to the NBA.
I was gonna make a joke, but I was like, yo, if you made it to NBA, then you know God's real.
So my buddy Rufat, who's from the same town, he always cracks a joke. He goes, if you count the Kardashians, we've taken more careers than we've added to the NBA when it comes to Armenians. So I, at the same time, started dating a girl, and it's the end of my freshman year, and the only way I could see her is if I can go to church with her and her family on Sundays. And so
man, God's been knocking at your heart.
Yeah, man.
For
So
a
this is
long
like
time.
2 years. I start going to church, and it's just like a regular, like evangelical, kind of seeker-friendly church. But I'm hearing the gospel, and I'm the kid that I break up with her. We get back together. We break up. I'm the kid that's putting up my hand every week saying the prayer for 2 years straight. I then dated Jehovah's Witness girl. I didn't have Mormon friends. I have Muslim friends. This is around 9/11, so this is like when it was really, really crazy. And I end up wrestling with God for 2 years, like hardcore. And my manager and our lead driver at my first job, I worked at Pizza Hut, we're both Christian. And I'm like, I think Jesus is the Son of God, but is he God in the flesh? I'm confused. And they gave me a book called The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And it was by Josh McDowell. And it was like a thick old apologetics book. And I just smashed through that whole book. Like, I'd never read that much. And I ended up surrendering my life to Jesus at the end of my junior year and fully like gave it all over to God. I'm doing it your way. I'm not going to do this 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm not going to, do the girls and try to, the status. And I meet my wife in high school around that same time. And so a year after graduating, me and my wife started dating. She was a year behind me. 4 years later to the date, we got married on our 4-year dating anniversary, July 5th. And I was able to pursue music full time because I was like, if I can't be a basketball player, I'm gonna be a rapper, right? Because what else is there if you're from the hood? So I ended up quitting my job in 2015, and from 2015 to 2020, I did rapping as a full-time thing, traveling around the country, playing colleges, playing churches, playing anything I could do. And did some cool stuff in the music industry. One of my artists ended up doing a deal with Interscope, and that kind of hurt our friendship, and a bunch of stuff happened. And so at the same time, I started dabbling in YouTube, vlogging, 2015, Casey Neistat era, failing miserably. I started vlogging my days as a full-time rapper, like June 1st, 2015, my days as a full-time rapper. And thankfully, I did the music, and I built a YouTube on the side. And so 2019 was my first year. Every single day upload of podcasts, just like this. I would go green room, sit down with somebody that was a homie, we do podcasts, and every day I dropped a clip. 2020, the pandemic shut down. I can't tour. I can't do shows. No one's paying for features. I started going live on YouTube. 15,000 subscribers at the beginning of 2020, like 80,000 subscribers by the end of 2020.
Let's go.
And that's when everything kind of, I was doing well with music. We were doing like 6 figures a year as an independent musician.
Dang.
But when it really popped off was when the YouTube hit, and then the YouTube just kind of exponentially grew well.